February 25th, 2026. Spooky scrapbook. Gallows Hill, Connecticut. Howling winds, driving snow. And bitter colds are the perfect atmosphere to share ghost stories, and New England has no shortage of them. Here's an excerpt from Ghastly Winter Ghosts of New England, Part 2, to explore while the snow piles up outside your door. It comes to us from Connecticut and begins in the winter of 1779. Gallows Hill, Connecticut. The cold of winter is much to bear when you're in a place you want to be. If you're in a place you don't want to be, it can be excruciating. That's especially true when you lose the right to make your own decisions. That's what happened to the troops under General Israel Putnam during the winter of 1779. Much like the soldiers at Valley Forge, the woods of modern-day Reading, Connecticut became their home as they waited out the worst of the cold and snow. Seemingly forgotten by their loved ones and deities, troops shared freezing quarters and went hungry and thirsty throughout their entire stay, and talk of desertion was common in the camp. General Putnam, aware of it all, had to find a way to instill order and discipline in his troops. And there's no better way to do that than by showing them what their fates could truly be. All he needed was a scapegoat to use as an example, and he didn't have to wait long for more than one to show up at his gallows. The redcoat farmer, his first example came in the form of a British spy posing as a farmer and scouting out the encampment. He was caught by a group of soldiers and brought before the general, who was only too happy to try to convict him. He was marched up the hill, condemned in front of the troops, and hanged while they watched. His name was never recorded, and his grave was never marked. Just like the men he was meant to inspire into submission, he was a nameless, faceless body. In the cold of war and winter, John Smith. Then came the 17-year-old John Smith. The human body can only take so much hunger and cold. So many of the men took to raiding nearby settlements and stealing food and provisions. General Putnam now needed a new scapegoat, and Smith fit the bill perfectly. He was caught attempting to sneak off and join the British Army rather than brave the awful winter and conditions with which he was forced to exist. He was court-martialed and recorded as saying that he would do it all over again if he had a chance. And that was that, he was marched to a clearing and condemned to die by firing squad. It would have to be the men themselves to put him to death, but it wouldn't be the painless dispatching most would hope for. Smith was stood just 20 yards away from 23 muskets when the men were ordered to open fire. The blasts from their weapons were so close and severe that his clothes caught on fire, and he burned to death while his executioners watched. Then his body hung from the gallows for everyone to see. The haunting. There are more executions, but they all lead to the same place. Gallows Hill, as it stands today, is a quiet park and collection of hiking trails with much more than scenery to encounter. The first encounter is the first victim that Putnam chose. Several hikers have reported seeing a silhouette standing at the ridge of Gallows Hill. He wears what looks like a long coat. The hem tattered, the outline blurred as if seen through heat shimmer. When approached, he vanishes, not by stepping away, but by dissolving into the air, as though he were never solid to begin with. Hikers on the 5th Connecticut and Neuse trails often report the same strange experience. Dog walkers report that their pets refuse to go near certain bends in the trail, growling at empty space or pulling hard in the opposite direction. One local resident swears she heard a man's voice whisper, "Wait," as she crossed the old stone wall near the hemlock stand. She turned, expecting another hiker. No one was there. Then there are orbs, figures of other young men standing in the woods, voices and noises. It was a brutal war during a brutal winter with a brutal leader ending lives to prove a point. If you're there in the winter, don't be surprised if you run into one of the men who died on Gallows Hill. They'll always be cold and hungry and wandering.
Sequinen sevilan, ane pikinkaunte, uenselia crucendu ili colonjoene, mor.
Some love is loud, some love waits by the window, the little pause, the tiny heartbeat, the way they listen for your steps, and somehow know before the door even opens. If you've ever been greeted by a cat who was waiting for you, you know this kind of love is real.
Senior cats have a way of changing what counts as a big moment. It becomes the slow walk toward you, your nap spot, the careful little routines, purr that takes a moment, and then melts you anyway. If you've loved a senior cat, you know these quiet moments can mean everything.
Sign language for spooky or scary.
The ones who wait the longest don't love cautiously. They love with gratitude, with loyalty, with a depth that feels like finally. If you've been thinking about adopting, maybe the one who's still waiting is the one meant for you. They were here before roads, before fences, before lawns and poisons. They clean what we leave behind. They balance what we disrupt. They aren't pests. They're neighbors. Please let them live.
I feel this picture. When my Adam passed away, I wanted to go with him. A bond that time couldn't break. Nearly 200 years ago in Italy, two souls were laid to rest side by side, a human and their cat. When scientists uncovered the grave, what stopped everyone in their tracks wasn't just the age of the remains. It was the way they were found. Their skeletons rested next to each other, bones gently touching. as if even time itself had refused to separate them. No names, no letters, no explanation, and yet the silence tells the whole story. This wasn't simply a person buried with an animal. This was companionship. This was trust. This was a quiet, chosen love that only cat people truly understand. 2 centuries ago, life was uncertain and often unforgiving. And still, a human made space in their world and in their final resting place for a cat. And that cat, known for choosing their bonds carefully, chose to stay until the very end. Long before modern comforts, long before social media posts about cat moms and cat dads, this bond already existed. It was never a trend. It was never a phase. It was something deeper. Cats have never been just pets. They have been companions in solitude, guardians of quiet nights, soft paws in hard times, family in their own gentle, dignified way. Even after 200 years, their resting place whispers a truth we've always known. Love doesn't need to be loud. True bonds don't need to be explained. And when a cat chooses you, that connection can outlive even time itself.
This haunted road trip through Connecticut is not for the faint of heart. This haunted hike through Connecticut leads to forgotten ruins. This charming Connecticut river town feels like New England's best-kept secret.
Lord, please watch over the stray cats trying to survive this winter storm. Right now, a powerful winter storm is sweeping across Pennsylvania with heavy snow and dangerously cold conditions that have prompted winter storm warnings and travel advisories across much of the state. Snow is piling up, winds are strong, and temperatures are bitter, making life outside life-threatening for animals without shelter. These strays have no warm homes or soft blankets to protect them from accumulating snow and the sinking chill. In deep cold like this, frostbite and hypothermia can set in quickly, and their little bodies struggle to stay warm. May you surround every vulnerable life with warmth and safety. Comfort them in the dark hours, send help where it's needed most, and guide compassionate hearts to protect the ones who cannot protect themselves. Keep them safe through the storm and bring them into shelter soon. I'm in ...
You may be in heaven, but our hearts are still connected. I feel it in the quiet moments, in the spaces where your presence once rested so naturally beside me. Distance has not undone what love built. There is an invisible thread between us that time cannot cut. It moves through memory, through prayer, through the soft ache of missing you. Even without your paws in my hands, I carry you with me every day. And one day, when my journey is finished, our hands will meet again. Not in sorrow, not in goodbye, but in a reunion that feels like coming home. How many been to Gillette Castle in East Haddam?
Love God at Holy Land, USA, an abandoned Christian theme park in Waterbury, CET.
Sometimes you have to leave the state to get away from an abuser. ... Not block them. ... Not argue. ... Not set boundaries. Strategically leave ... when someone is addicted to control. Distance becomes protection ... if they know your job, your family, your routine, your child's school. That's access. And access fuels stalking. Relocating isn't. DRAMATIC. IT strategic ... Your safety is more important than familiarity ... More important than comfort. More important than starting over ... You can rebuild in a new place ... You can't rebuild from a grave ... Relocation isn't weakness ... It's single quotes as choosing life. Cat sees cat ... Bruce Lee #C, and one day, when my journey is finished, our hands will meet again. Not in sorrow, not in goodbye, but in a reunion that feels like coming home marshlards. im spooky.
Life's better with a motion light detector on your porch.